Hey everyone, welcome back to bageltcg. Today I'm going to be kicking off the Flesh and Blood 101 series. It's going to be an introductory series for beginners where I go over all the basics in Flesh and Blood, and eventually it'll go into, I guess, a 102 where I talk about more advanced topics and so on and so on. But, we'll do it linearly, and we're going to start off with just the very basics of Flesh and Blood. So if you're just starting out or if you want to review the basics, this is a great place to be. I'm going to try to make these videos kind of bite-sized, so not super long. I'm not going to throw an hour video at you. I'll still have the same amount of content. It's just going to be split up across more videos over time, so you can learn all about Flesh and Blood. It also takes me a while to build these videos, so can't put them all out at once. So we're going to start with the very basics today. It's going to be the types of cards is what we're going to start out with here. So types of cards is a good thing to know when you're starting out a game, and there is a lot of types of cards in Flesh and Blood, right? To start with, we have the hero cards. Hero cards are what you build your entire deck around. You must choose a hero card, and then you can only play generic cards or cards that are within your hero's class or talents. Then we have weapons. Weapon cards are available to every hero. You can play a weapon card within your class. So, for example, Bravo here, who you can see at the bottom is a Guardian, can play this Anathos, which is a Guardian weapon. You can have one two-handed weapon or two one-handed weapons. There's also offhand equipment now, or offhand equipment. So you can have a one-handed weapon and a offhand equipment like a shield. I'm sure they will expand on that over time as well. And then there are equipment here. So equipment are different from weapons. Once again, you can only play generics or ones of your class. So for Bravo, who's a Guardian, can play this Helm of Aizen's Peak, which is a Guardian equipment. And there is currently head, chest, gloves, or hands, and feet equipment. And you can play one of each, right? So you can have head piece, chest piece, hand piece, arms. I guess they're called arms, I think. Arm piece, or legs, I believe. It's arms and legs, yeah. So you can have an arm piece and a leg piece, right? Moving on to our next type of cards, we have non-attack actions, like this Guardian Action Aura here, for example. And these are actions that are not attacks, basically. So any action that is not an attack is a non-attack action, right? So these auras count as one. There's also just any kind of non-attack action. You'll see more throughout this slideshow. And these are any actions that are not attacks. You can see emerging power here. We also have attack actions, which are like this debilitate. This is distinctly different from a non-attack action in the game. We have instants. Instants are not actions at all. They are instants. An instant can be played whenever you have priority, which we will get into later in this series. We have attack reactions and defense reactions, which are played during the attack reaction and defense reaction step. So these are not actions. They are reactions, which are different from actions, right? And these only can be played at certain times during combat. Now let's look at the parts of a card. That should be, I believe, all of the types of cards in the game. So an important thing you'll notice in Flesh and Blood is certain cards, for example, most common cards, have three variations of them, right? So we have the red, the yellow, and the blue. There are different things that change when a card has different versions. Not every card has different versions. For example, most equipment only have I believe all equipment only have one version. And most majestic and super rares only have one version. And then some rares only have one version as well. But a lot of cards, I'd say the majority of cards, have the three different color versions. This is the simplest way to show the difference. So this card has no actual effect. This is just a flavor text here for some cool flavor, but this doesn't do anything. You can tell the only difference between these cards, right? There's two differences. They have decreasing power and increasing pitch, right? So pitch is when you pitch a card, you get that many resources, right? So this blue, you can see these three little pips right here, will pitch for 3 resources, right? So it'll generate 3 resources when you pitch it, which means you can pay, for example, for any of these other Raging Onslaughts, which cost 3 resources, right? You can see the cost here is 3. But when something pitches for less, so this red one will only pitch for one resource, it'll only generate one resource when you pitch it. It will swing for 7 though, right? So when you value more damage, you'll be on these higher red color strips, right? These red cards. Some decks are very aggressive and try to have all 0 cost cards with red lines, so those are called red line decks, and those will try to deal the most damage with the least cost. More controlling decks typically have very big attacks, and they will play more blue cards that pitch for a lot, right? So they might have an attack that costs 7, right? And so they need to pitch 3 blue cards to swing with it. So that is a major difference in these types of cards. Next, we're going to look at another part of a card. So here we're looking at defense value, right? So you can see different cards have different defense values. This can, vary from card to card. All cards except defense reactions. Defense reactions can have more than 3 block, but outside of that, the maximum is 3 block usually. Some attacks and non-attacks will have 3 defense, like you'll see here. This attack only has 2 defense, and this generic action, which is, like I said, a non-attack action you can see here, has 2 block as well, right? So it can have 3 or 2 block. I don't believe there are currently any 1 blocks, but I could be wrong. And there are 0 blocks. You can see here, instants have no defense value, which means you cannot block with them. And items, which are a type of non-attack action, also have no block value, so they cannot be blocked with. Defense reactions have typically a high defense value, but you do have to pay to use them. So unlike other blocking, right? So on here, if you block with this Raging Onslaught for 3, you don't have to pay to do that. You just block with it, right? You just put it on the board, you use up the card during the defense step, and it blocks for 3. This Unmovable blocks for 5, but you have to pay 3 resources to block with it, right? So it blocks for more, but it has a cost. That is during the step. So that is what we're going to cover for now, right? So we have looked at the types of cards. So these are the types of cards in the game. We have, once again, hero, weapon, equipment, non-attack action, attack action, instant, attack reaction, defense reaction. We've looked at the types of the cards. So we looked at how the color strip of a card, the color of a card can change its stats. We looked at how there's differing defense values on cards, and how some cards have no defense value, and some cards have higher defense value. That is all of the parts of the cards for now. I believe next video I'm going to talk about the steps of gameplay, so how many cards you draw, how you go through your turn, the steps of a turn, like when you can play attack reactions and defense reactions, and we'll kind of go through a basic turn. I'm going to try to set that up where I can show you with my physical cards on an actual playmat. So I'm currently working on getting together a setup to have a nice setup. This webcam wouldn't really do it justice, so I'm trying to get like a nice camera to show how that works, right? If you have any other questions, any questions about what happened in this video, please leave them in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.